Hi, this is Nicole Kupchik, and this is 10 Minute Tidbits. Today, I'm here with
Joel Green.
And we are going to chat about something super controversial.
Yes.
Patients waking up during CPR. Yikes!
Yeah, no, I don't know if any of you have experienced this. You posted the blog article from CNN talking about the patient in Europe who woke up. But I personally had this. I jokingly call it the zombie arm, or the arm comes up during CPR and it's like grabbing your chest or like touching your arm, or patients moving legs. It can be very disturbing for healthcare providers, for them and for their families if their family's in with the code also.
Oh, completely. Yeah. So just to kind of give you some background. So a couple weeks ago on social media, I posted an article from CNN about a patient in Europe. I think it was a follow-up to something that had been published, a case study that had been published, but it was a patient in Europe who was having a cardiac arrest, and he was awake during his arrest. It was because he was getting such high-performance CPR, and it was this whole dilemma. Well, first of all, people turned it into an ethical dilemma. Like, it's unethical. And actually, I think it's ethical to wake up. That means we're doing good CPR. Yeah. This is actually a good thing. But I find in healthcare the ethical piece of it is, should we sedate a patient who wakes up during CPR? Right. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, like, I always talk about like patients on the ventilator who they go through that phase where the family's always like, can they hear me when they're sedated? And I always tell them, I said, we have patients who wake up and tell you everything that happened. And then we also have patients who wake up and tell us nothing happened and they had the great dream, and we have patients who wake up and tell us things that completely did not happen.
Yeah, that would be delirium,
right?
Yeah.
So we have those cases, and so you don't know what is the right answer for sedation.
Yeah, I've had this happen quite a few times, and over just in my career. But I'll never forget one time. It was a guy who was a VFib, and I was doing chest compressions, and his arm just kind of came up. He was like rubbing my arm, almost like to say, "It's okay." Yeah. I felt so bad, but I think first of all, one thing. Let's just back up. Has this ever happened to you? We would love to know in the comments if this has happened to you. But I think the other thing is talk to the patient, right? You're perfusing their head, and talk to them and just let them know what's happening and that you're there with them, and give them some sort of a way to feel safe if that's possible, right?
Yeah. Because it could be a traumatic environment. I mean, you wake up and there's somebody pounding on your chest. You hear a lot of voices and noises.
Yeah,
if you're in the ICU, you can hear alarms. You may hear the AEDs talking. It can be kind of a scary environment.
Yeah, I agree. But so now, do you sedate somebody? I don't know. What are your thoughts on it?
My thoughts would be just be careful if you're going to sedate patients. And the big thing for me would be like using something like an anxiolytic like Versed, because you're not going to get the cardiac changes from that type of drug.
Yeah.
But if you give fentanyl or you give morphine, you may vasodilate them.
Yeah, you can really drop out the pressure.
In addition to having a VFib arrest, you now cause hypovolemia and hypotension.
Yeah.
Just because they vasodilate so much.
No, and I think the amnesic effects of midazolam would be... I'm assuming it would be a good thing. I think it would be a good thing though. I struggle with this because you don't ever want a patient to wake up and develop PTSD from an event like this. But do you risk the hemodynamic effects of drugs to give them a sedative of any sort? I don't know. We're really struggling with this.
Yeah, and you were telling me a story about the nurses, like, we should study this. That it's like, how do you consent for that? Yeah. How do you study? How do you assign you get this and you don't get this?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine how how unethical that would sound? Yeah. We're going to do a study where if you're awake while we're pounding on your chest, we're going to give one group sedatives, and then the other group, we're going to see how you do. Yeah. I mean, that would be really... I think it would be an ethical dilemma, but it would be challenging to study, right?
It would also be scary as the patient to be consented for that, because you're like, am I going to die in the hospital? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you would have to get what's called a waiver of consent and then go back later, But it's, I don't know. I've really struggled with this, and there was a lot of dialogue when I posted the CNN, and then ZDoggMD did a whole video on it as well. And so, but I'll tell you what's happening across the country, because I'm in a great place where I consult, and so I'm interacting with EMS agencies and hospitals all over the country, and I'll tell you, places are starting to write sedation protocols for patients specifically for waking up during CPR.
Yeah, which is a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think my other thing too on that is just piece of advice is no matter what you do, keep going until the pulse check.
Yes.
Just remember with every single pulse check, if you're off the chest, that perfusion pressure is going to go down. So a patient who was moving, as soon as you get off the chest, they may stop moving and you're going to go back to whatever rhythm you were.
Yeah.
So it's a big thing is like just keep going until pulse check. And if it's something like VFib, don't be doing pulse checks.
Yes, okay, that's like my total soapbox. If you've got VFibs, cut it out with the pulse checks, right?
Yeah.
They should be rhythm checks to see if you need to defibrillate. But cut it out with pulse checks with VFib, right?
Yeah. I mean, everybody's been in that code where there's that, do you feel one? Do you feel one? Do you
I don't
feel
know,
one?
my pulse, your pulse,
all of a sudden 60 seconds has gone by, 90 seconds has gone by without any perfusion pressure. So the pulse checks is what's bad for CPR regimens.
I agree, absolutely agree, I don't know, we would love your thoughts. And I'll just tell you, there's not a right or wrong answer on this. What are your thoughts? Should we provide sedation to somebody who wakes up during CPR or not?
Yeah.
Or, and again, with analgesics, we worry about, really bottoming out the pressure, but, I don't know, what are your thoughts? So, and a lot of people have said, well, let's wait to see what AHA is going to say. I don't think AHA is going to say anything about this, you guys. Their guidelines are evidence-based. We don't have evidence to say what to do. This is a new problem that's surfacing. We're doing much better CPR, and patients are waking up during CPR.
Well, and I think we have so much better ways to measure our good CPR. I mean, all of our new dummies talk about time off the chest, depth and rate. So, I mean, like our new dummies are giving us instant feedback in our mock codes and during CPR training, as well as, we're using continuous end-tidal CO2 to look for those over 20 millimeters of mercury. So we have such better ways to see that our CPR is doing awesome, and that's created this problem.
Which is a good problem. It's a super good problem. But so I don't know. I would say stay tuned. But again, we would just love your comments, would love the dialogue to see what you think. But just do know that, again, agencies and hospitals are starting, to develop these protocols. So I thought has really got to be put into, what's going to be the most hemodynamically stable for the patient to administer. So, okay. All right. Well, I'm Nicole Kupchik, and this is
Joel Green.
And this is 10 Minute Tidbits.